The year was 1978, a late autumn evening in the small town of Coldford, Massachusetts. The streets were empty, the air smelled faintly of burning wood from the chimneys, and a thin layer of fog rolled in from the marshlands. Sheriff Daniel Brooks had just finished his last patrol. When the call came through his radio, a man had been found wandering along Route 17, barefoot, shivering and dressed in clothes no one could quite place. Not old-fashioned, not futuristic, but different. When Sheriff Brooks reached the scene, the man stood silently by the roadside, staring at the night sky as if trying to find a specific star. His skin was pale, his eyes strangely reflective, almost metallic under the flashlight. The sheriff asked his name. "Samuel Hawthorne," he said slowly, as if the words themselves were borrowed. "Where do you live?" Samuel blinked once, then replied, "Not here. Not in this world." The sheriff thought he was dealing with a runaway patient from Coldford State Hospital, but the record showed no such person. His fingerprints matched no one in the FBI's files. His clothing was made of fibers no textile expert in town could identify. They brought Samuel to the local station for questioning. He didn't resist, didn't even seem afraid, just curious. Over the course of several hours, he told the officers a story none of them could believe. He claimed he had come from a parallel Earth, where the air was cleaner, the oceans glowed faintly blue at night, and the moon was much closer. In his world, humans lived alongside something he called the observers. Tall, silent beings with eyes like silver glass. He said he had crossed over into our version of Earth by mistake, through a place in the woods where the fabric is thin. When asked why he came, Samuel hesitated, his voice lowered. "They are coming here too," he said. "The observers don't stay in one world. They move when the hunger begins." No one took him seriously at first. The official report described him as mentally disoriented and recommended medical evaluation. But strange things began happening in Coldford within a week of Samuel's arrival. People reported seeing tall, shadow-like figures standing at the edge of their property at night. Farm animals went missing without a trace. The fog that came from the marshlands grew thicker, sometimes swallowing entire streets. And Samuel Hawthorne, he never slept. At least no one ever saw him close his eyes. By the second week of Samuel Hawthorne's presence in Coldford, fear had begun to spread like frost across the town. Sheriff Brooks tried to keep the reports quiet, but in a place where everyone knew everyone else, rumors moved faster than the fog. On the night of November 3rd, Farmer Elias Grant knocked on the sheriff's door well past midnight. His hands were shaking, his clothes wet from the mist. "They took my cows," Elias whispered. "No tracks, no sound, just gone, and, Sheriff, there was something in my field, tall as a lamppost, thin as a shadow, eyes like mirrors. It just stared." The description was identical to what Samuel had called the observers. Sheriff Brooks confronted Samuel the next morning in his holding cell. The man was sitting perfectly still, his gaze fixed on a point in the far corner. "They've found me," Samuel said before the sheriff could speak. "What do they want?" "Not me, you." His metallic eyes shifted to meet Brooks. "They want all of you." Samuel explained that the observers did not hunt like animals. They selected. They would watch a place for weeks, studying its people, learning who would be taken first. He said that once they had marked a town, it could not be saved. At first, Brooks dismissed it as madness, but then the disappearances began. A young couple, Mark and Linda Colson, never came home from an evening drive. Their car was found on the old mill road, doors open, headlights still on. Inside, the seats were wet with a strange dark residue that smelled faintly of metal. No footprints, no sign of struggle, just an empty vehicle under the fog. The following night, Pastor Henry Wilcox vanished from his locked rectory. The front door remained bolted from the inside, the windows untouched. Yet his bed was empty, his Bible lying open to a verse about watchers in the night. By the fifth disappearance, the sheriff could no longer deny the pattern, and Samuel's calmness was starting to feel less like delusion and more like resignation. The townspeople began to avoid the streets after sunset. They boarded their windows, kept their lights off, and spoke in whispers, as if the fog itself could listen. But it didn't help. The sightings increased, always the same, tall, thin figures with mirror eyes, standing motionless just beyond the edge of visibility. Then came the night of the knocking. Half the town claimed to have heard it, slow, deliberate knocks on their doors or windows. 3 taps, silence, 3 more. When anyone gathered the courage to look outside, the fog was there, but nothing else. Sheriff Brooks asked Samuel if the observers could be stopped. Samuel looked at him for a long time before answering. "You can't stop them," he said. "You can only go where they can't follow." "And where's that?" Brooks asked. "Another world." That was the first time Brooks began to wonder if Samuel hadn't wandered into Coldford by accident, but had come here because we were next. The first real panic hit Coldford on November 12th. It began with the school bus. It was supposed to drop off 23 children on the south side of town. The driver, Carol Renshaw, made every stop until she reached the old willow tree at the corner of Marsh Road. That's where the fog swallowed them. When the bus was found 2 hours later, it sat idling in the middle of the road. The doors were open. The seats were empty. Carol was gone. The only thing left was the faint metallic smell Samuel had warned them about, and a single handprint on the glass, impossibly long and narrow, the fingers leaving behind an oily silver residue. Sheriff Brooks locked Samuel's cell and confronted him again, this time with his revolver in hand. "If you know how to stop this, you're going to tell me. Right now." Samuel didn't flinch. "You think I brought them here?" "I didn't. I ran from them. But they always follow. Always." The sheriff pressed the gun closer. "You said there's a place they can't follow." "What is it?" "A crossing," Samuel whispered. "It's in the marsh, where the water never freezes. At midnight, the worlds touch. I crossed into yours there. You can cross out, if you dare." That night, Brooks gathered a small group: Deputy May Turner, Elias Grant, and Reverend Wilcox's brother, Paul. They followed Samuel into the marshlands under a pale, swollen moon. The fog was thick enough to taste. As they walked, shapes began to appear between the trees, tall, unmoving figures, their silver eyes catching the moonlight. They didn't speak. They didn't move closer, but they were everywhere, silently watching. "Don't stop," Samuel said. "If you look at them too long, they'll decide." The group pushed on until they reached a pool of dark water, perfectly still despite the cold wind. The surface shimmered faintly, reflecting a sky that didn't match their own. That's when they heard it, a low hum, like a deep note played on some enormous instrument. The observers stepped closer. May Turner screamed as one of them reached out an impossibly long arm, its fingers grazing her shoulder. Her scream cut off instantly and she was gone. No splash, no movement, just gone. Samuel waded into the pool. "This is your only chance," he said to Brooks. "Stay and you'll be chosen. Go and you'll never come back. But you'll live." Elias Grant didn't hesitate. He plunged into the water and vanished beneath the shimmering surface. Paul Wilcox followed. Brooks looked at the figures closing in, their mirrored eyes now filled with faint, shifting images. Faces, maybe. The faces of those already taken. He stepped toward the water. A hand like cold glass gripped his arm. The last thing Brooks saw was Samuel disappearing into the pool, the surface rippling behind him. Then the fog swallowed everything. When search parties came days later, Coldford was empty. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just silence, and that metallic smell lingering in the air. To this day, no trace of the townspeople has ever been found. The marsh remains untouched, the pool still shimmering on certain moonlit nights. And sometimes, travelers on Route 17 report seeing a pale man by the roadside, barefoot, staring at the stars, claiming to be from another world. The official disappearance of Coldford became one of the most baffling missing person cases in modern American history. On November 19, 1978, the Massachusetts State Police entered the town expecting to find a community in crisis. Instead, they found something worse: absence. The houses were untouched. Lights still burned in a few windows. Dinner plates sat on tables, food half-eaten, coffee mugs still warm. Radios played softly in empty kitchens. There were no signs of forced entry, no overturned chairs, no struggle. It was as if the town's population, all 312 residents, had simply stepped outside and never come back.